Welcome to the Commissioner's Corner. I'm your host, Scott Vargo. I'm joined by two of your three county commissioners, Thomas Davidson and Dan Gibbs. Karn, unfortunately, is not able to join us today, but we're out on a limb and we're going to do a show without her. She had knee replacement surgery, so she is recovering from that and wasn't able to make it to today's show. So we're going to start off the day with talking about the Forest Service and the Sheriff's Office and some work that the county and the towns and the fire districts have all helped to support in an effort to increase some of our prevention activities. So Thomas, Dan, who wants to start off with that one?
So the simple thing that we've got going on is the localities will be local government's going to be funding patrols that are going to be watching for unattended campfires, and on the Forest Service side of the line, we'll be having Forest Service personnel doing that. So we kind of passed the hat, rounded up a donation, and gave that money to the Forest Service to do that work for us. And then we've authorized overtime for Sheriff Fitzsimons. And so his officers will be doing that on private side of the line. So,
and there's also so Town of Breckenridge, Town of Blue River, Town of Dillon, Town of Frisco, Town of Silverthorne, Summit Fire and EMS, Red, White, and Blue Fire all contributed, I think, $50,000 in total amongst all of those entities. Breckenridge came forward with $25,000 on its own as part of that 50. Then the county is funding around $65,000 total coming out of the wildfire mitigation funds. So that again goes towards 4 seasonal dispersed Rangers, I think is what they called them, something along those lines. And then we've got another bunch of money that's going towards the Sheriff's Office to help with some overtime. And then the third part of that is a big public education and awareness campaign, of which those Rangers and those Sheriff's personnel will be out there spreading the word as well to folks as they encounter them in the forest. So they may or may not have a unattended campground when they talk to them, but they'll be talking to them about the importance of managing what they're doing in the backcountry.
You know, over the last few years, the Forest Service has kind of clamped down on some of these places that people are camping and where we've had experiences with unattended campfires. So they've already been doing, good work as far as we're concerned with regards to control of this. But how much has their budget been cut locally in the last 10 years? Like
2008 it was at 33 million, and now it's at 12 million.
Yeah, so it's just crazy the kind of cuts that they've seen. And they did away with these kinds of patrols a long time ago. And not exactly excited that we had to take up a local collection to get services from the Forest Service, but it's not the local office's fault. And so we absolutely feel like we have to have those patrols back out there after what happened last summer.
And just to remind everyone, really right after, during the Peak 2 fire and right after, when there was a fire ban in place, there were many locations throughout Summit County where there were these unattended campfires. So we really hope that this will help. These 4 individuals will not only be red card certified, so they'll have wildland fire certifications, but they'll also have the ability to write tickets for these unattended campfires. So having boots on the ground is everything. And our lands in Summit County, as most people know, are about 80% federal land. So this will be a really positive step, in my opinion. And they'll work very closely with the 2 fire districts, the Sheriff's Department, and will be housed in the Dillon compound, I believe, because they have housing available right there. So,
and I know that. Go ahead.
Well, I guess in addition to just getting these people out there and patrolling. We continue to have conversations with the Forest Service about when we will enact fire ban, right, and what those criteria are. And those conversations continue, but we're hopeful that they're going to be a little bit more sensitive to some of the factors that we feel are so important up here right? In terms of when they do that, we want to, make that decision together. We don't want to have conflicting, regulations out there, public land versus, the rest of the county. And I think that the other, question of where do we allow campfires in the future, and what will those rules be, that continues to be a conversation. We just have to see where we end up with. But we're really closely looking at all of this, and I have to say the Forest Service has been great in terms of dialoguing with us about it. We just have to see where we end up.
Yeah, it's important to note, so the Forest Service mentioned to us that one of the activities that these rangers will do is they'll do an inventory around the dispersed camping areas and identify those that they think should perhaps be added to the list of those where we don't allow dispersed camp, they don't allow dispersed camping. So we'll have some good information coming out of some of the work that they're doing as well.
Your points about, look at the ground that people are actually on and what's around us, right? Like if somebody's doing dispersed camping and it's in heavily dense, forest, maybe that's not a good place for dispersed campfires, right?
Yeah, we have numerous examples too of Summit County where the forest is so dense, where there's literally over 1,000 stems per acre. And if folks want to try to pitch a tent right there and have a campfire with dead trees all around them, I would say it's safe to say the county is very nervous about that,
right,
and would prefer people to be in more of a defined campground setting where there's a fire pit and so forth there established.
Yep. And as Thomas mentioned, the ban if issue is a very scientific basis in terms of what criteria we use to determine should we be bringing forward to the Board of County Commissioners a recommendation to impose a ban. There's a group of fire folks, the sheriff, the Forest Service, et cetera, that get together weekly during fire season to have a conversation by phone and talk about the conditions. And I think that part of what we're looking at going forward is being a bit more conservative and perhaps ratcheting down what some of those triggers are in lieu or in light of what happened with Peak 2 last year when Dan and I were having conversations in the week prior to that about it feels like it's getting dry, and unfortunately the message from the weather folks was the monsoons are here, it's gonna rain. But Peak 2 broke out, and then it was about a week after that the monsoons did arrive. Right. And so we don't want to take that risk or take that chance this season. So.
Right.
All right, so let's step out of that one. Dan, you want to talk a little bit about, there were a couple of healthcare bills that we were watching pretty closely and really interested in. Unfortunately, they both failed. Do you want to talk a little bit about that and then an upcoming meeting?
Sure. We've been working really hard on affordable, accessible healthcare here in Summit County and really trying to be a leader in our region and in Colorado, I'd say, and looking at these issues. There were a couple bills that we were following closely. We were organizing testimony. We were working hard to get these bills through. Number one was a reinsurance proposal where there are some other states that have adopted it. It's kind of like insurance for insurance companies. And the real positive would have been potentially about a 30 to 35% decrease in premiums here in Summit County. Unfortunately, that did not pass, but the governor's office was very bullish in support of it. The House passed it. We had pretty strong bipartisan support in the Senate. It just didn't make it out of committee. Yep. And so same thing happened to a bill, HB 1382, that looked at kind of a study looking at a Medicaid buy-in option for Coloradans, and then looked at public-private partnerships, and then potentially a co-op type system for healthcare. And this was just a study bill. So unfortunately that did not pass either. It would have cost the state about $100,000 to do this analysis that I thought would be invaluable for the state to have this information to make a best decision moving forward on something. But the status quo won out again this year, unfortunately, and it's working. Insurance is working really well for or the larger insurance companies, some of the hospitals, pharmaceuticals, but the consumer is still getting hammered.
Yeah.
And if you're on the individual market, you know what I'm talking about. People on small and large group plans are somewhat insulated by the increases. They're still seeing increases, but not like the individual market. So, so as a result of some of these challenges, we're really still trying to work hard to tip the needle on affordability. We're having the Division of Insurance Commissioner, Mike Conway, come up this coming Friday, what's the date of that? May 17th, I believe, or 18th?
Yeah, 19th, I think.
The 19th?
May 19th.
Okay, so at the
Or
Silver...
18th, I'm sorry, May the 18th.
18th, Silverthorne Pavilion, 12 to 1. It's a town hall type forum. Tomorrow, Dranksevit from FERC, as well as Paul Chakowski, the CEO of the hospital. Yeah, we'll be there too. State Representative Millie Hamner is planning on participating. So really a great opportunity for the public to come to voice their concerns, but also kind of hear what people have been working on.
Sure.
This effort seems so David versus Goliath, right? I mean, the industry is very big and it's very powerful, and its lobbyists just carry, huge stick and huge voices down at the State House.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Yep. Well, and I guess the next big thing with regards to healthcare is going to be in November when there are elections, and whether or not or how that changes the complexion. So right now you have a House that is led by a Democratic majority, you have a Senate that's led by a Republican majority, and then you have a Democratic governor. Lots of seats in both houses are going to be up, as well as the governor within the state of Colorado. So important, as always, for folks to get out and vote.
Yeah.
Ask those candidates what your position on healthcare, on affordable healthcare, and what's your plan for it.
Yeah.
Right.
So whether they're Republican or Democrat, doesn't matter. You need to ask everyone.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. All right.
Yeah, those bills that you had good bipartisan sponsorships, right?
Oh yeah.
Those bills had good bipartisan sponsorship, but the industry is very powerful.
Yep. All right, so we have one last item before we take a quick break, and that is that there is an art forum that hopefully folks are familiar with at the County Commons, so the main lobby at the County Commons. So May the 20th is when the new collection will open, so they'll have their sort of opening party, and then that will be there for the next number of weeks for folks to come by the County Commons and view it. So just FYI for everybody.
Yeah, if you enjoy the art at the County Commons forum, tell Carm thanks, because she's the one that's figured this out.
That's right. That's absolutely right.
Take no credit.
That is her deal. All right.
She's awesome.
So we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back.